We can do better, and we have done better with this governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This guy here, this governor, has courage. Sometimes I don't like some of the courage that he has, but he stands up. He's tough. He believes in integrity. He believes in doing what he thinks is right, and he stands up for what he thinks is right. We've got to channel our energy. We can't be blaming the wrong people in this Commonwealth, and particularly our president. Don't let anybody beat up our president. We had 8 years of a lousy presidency, and this guy's a bright guy, cares about America like our governor cares about this state. We're standing up for our Democrats. There's no way to sugarcoat it, and he doesn't want me to sugarcoat it. We've had our differences. Every time he speaks, he tells everybody, yeah, sometimes I don't disagree, sometimes I disagree with Bobby. That's okay. That's good government. We can fight. We have our differences of opinion, but we've got to stick together when we need to stick together, and now's the time to stick together. He's a tough guy. He's got a tough job. All those things that were talked about the economy, the stock market and housing and the loss of jobs and the unemployment rate in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It is not his fault, and it's not our fault. And you and I and the governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts together are going to dig our way out of this. He's a good, honest man. He feels the pain of the citizens of this Commonwealth. He understands. He's got the courage to stand up to the opposition and stand up to the press and challenge them on their solutions. He puts his on the table. He knows where he wants to go. He knows what he wants to do. He is our governor, and he's going to continue to be our governor with your support. Please welcome the governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Deval Patrick.
I hadn't seen the commercial. I heard about it, but I hadn't seen the commercial. But I was there and remember very clearly thanking Labor for the then 41, I think now 51 endorsements. And I said then that I was grateful, and I meant it. And I am grateful for the endorsement of the AFL-CIO. I got a call yesterday from Bobby. He said that the conversation was robust. Remember that? And you put that in your release as well. And you know what? I'm glad it was robust. I'm glad it was robust. I haven't been a rubber stamp. You shouldn't be a rubber stamp. We are, all of us, going to be making hard choices. We've had to. The times demand it. Integrity demands it. Sometimes those choices will fall your way and sometimes they won't. But there will never be an occasion where we have not engaged in candor and honesty and with the best interests of the whole of the Commonwealth in mind. And we aren't always going to agree, but we have to have a kind of politics that says you don't have to agree on everything before we work together on anything. And what I value most about the statement that you put out is that after those robust conversations, what you endorsed were our values. Our values. Because when all else is up for grabs, there has to be a rudder and a steady hand on it that we turn to make the hard calls. And of all of the values central to them in my own life and in our government is generational responsibility. Generational responsibility is that old-fashioned idea every single one of us learned from our grandparents, that we in our time are supposed to do all we can to leave it better for those who come behind us. That's different than what's on offer by the other candidates. That's the reason we invest in education at the highest level in the history of the Commonwealth, even when the bottom is falling out of so much. That's the reason we work together to implement effectively health care reform and have to work together to assure that the costs come down. Generational responsibility is the reason we do the unglamorous work of rebuilding our roads and rails and bridges, expanding broadband, rebuilding public and affordable housing, reinvesting again in our recreational facilities and our college and university campuses. All of it creates jobs right now, but it also creates a platform for economic development and opportunity into the future. Generational responsibility. That is the reason why we are coming out of recession faster than every other state in America. It's the reason why we've added 65,000 jobs in this year alone and are adding jobs faster than every other state. It's the reason why we continue to attract those new industries that will help us and are leading us out of recession. It's the reason your children and children all across the Commonwealth are scoring at the top of the nation in student achievement, thanks to our teachers and the investments that we are making in public education. It's the reason, I guess the point is that the values that you have endorsed and the values we are fighting for are worth fighting for, because we owe it to our time, but we also owe it to a time yet to be. And they are radically different values than are on offer by the other candidates. Charlie Baker's answer to unemployment is to put 5,000 more people out of work and throw 12,000 people off their unemployment insurance benefits. I'm not making that up. That's what he says. You've heard the candidates talk about how it's time to roll back the sales tax, 555, or cut this, cut that. The same candidates who say that rolling back on question 3 to 3% is too radical. They've all said that. Have you heard it? They've all said it. But their proposals impose exactly the same financial and fiscal impact. Their own ideas would require another $2.5 or $3 billion cut from state government. And I, for one, am tired of all the talk about how it's a tragedy when a factory lays off 1,000 people, but it's a good thing when government lays off 1,000 people. It's not a good thing. In either case, we're talking about somebody's bills that have to be paid, somebody's kids who have to be educated, some mortgage that has to be looked after. There are human beings behind these line items. And that doesn't mean that any of us get to escape from the hard decisions. But we sure better be making those decisions with people in mind and not mathematics alone. Not mathematics alone. I work with those state workers and public workers. I see those teachers and meet them and talk with them who run to work, who love those children, who give those kids, in some cases, more love than they get at home. Nobody was complaining about state workers when state workers are the ones who restored clean drinking water after 3 days after a water main break, when we were looking at a month of 2 million people being without water. A year and a half ago or so, when floodwaters were coursing over dams and threatening dams, I went out to Waltham. I'll never forget it. People talking about how they saw more water coming over that dam than they had ever seen in their lifetimes. People who had lived in Waltham all their lives. Great concern that there would be catastrophic damage downstream if that dam gave way. And a state worker strapped on a cord and crawled out on that dam with that water cascading at risk to his own life to try to relieve those boards and relieve that pressure behind the dam to save people and property downstream. A state worker, a union worker. I am just so tired of beating up on working people, of reading the stock market as if it's an economic indicator. Employment is an economic indicator. Jobs are what we have to be about. And that is going to require a strategy, not a soundbite, not a slogan, but a strategy. And our strategy has been to make investments in job creation, in education, and in health care, and it's working. Yesterday, I went out and spent some time at a jobs club in Quincy. Any of you know about jobs clubs? They're groups of people who get together in the career centers to talk about a way forward, how they can support each other. And they come in series, and they work in the career center for a time. And this one jobs club had about 20 people who have since moved out of the career center because they've been unemployed so long they had to make time and space for folks who were coming to the next jobs club. A year and a half, 2 years in some cases. 20 people, most of them my age, in their 50s and 60s. They've done everything they were asked to do in every job they've ever had. And they're scared. It wasn't anger. It wasn't bitterness. They actually weren't blaming the president or their governor. They understand what they're looking at is what it would be like and will be like in 2 weeks when their extended unemployment insurance benefits run out, and how they are going to put food on the table. Food. How they're going to keep shelter over themselves and their families. They're afraid. And I go to work every day and go to bed every night with their voices and their faces in my mind and on my heart. They aren't asking for government to solve every problem in everyone's life. They're asking for their government to see them and understand them and to worry about them and to do what we can to help them help themselves. They still want to believe in the American dream. I still want to believe and do believe in the American dream. And the work we have to do is to remind the rest of this Commonwealth, frankly, the rest of this country, that the American dream is worth fighting for. And so I am here to ask for your help. I appreciate your endorsement, but that's just the beginning. We need your help. When I ask you to go out there and talk to your friends and your neighbors and your coworkers, don't do it for me, do it for those folks at that jobs club in Quincy. I ask you, put a bumper sticker on your car for those folks in Quincy. Put a lawn sign out for those folks in Quincy. Go talk to your colleagues, your brothers and sisters at the Union Hall. Talk to some folks who don't agree with us for those folks in Quincy. Come to a standout for those folks in Quincy. Make a phone call, not to some anonymous phone bank, to the folks on your own cell phone list. Send an email for those folks in Quincy, because I want to be clear with you. We are not fighting for my job. We're fighting for theirs and for yours. And it is worth fighting for, because there's no other candidate in this race who sees them and is worried about them and thinks that government ought to do what it can to help them and you help themselves. Bring that spirit, and we will win. We will deserve to win. And then we can finish what we started. God bless you all. I look forward to working with you.